All right, we are here to get some reaction to the announcement from Governor Janet Mills and her campaign. This is around 8:45 this morning that she is ending her bid for U.S. Senate. We have our panel of three experts from the In the Arena podcast. Guys, appreciate your analysis on short notice here. Want to set up our conversation by reading a key aspect of this news release from the Mills campaign, where she wrote, "While I have the drive and passion, commitment, and experience, and above all else, the fight to continue on, I very simply do not have the one thing that political campaigns unfortunately require today, the financial resources." Pat, we'll go to you first with a reaction to her dropping and that statement.
Yeah, let's keep in mind that it's been about a year probably that we heard that the DC Democrats, Chuck Schumer among them, were urging Janet Mills very strongly to get in this race, seeing her as the most likely person who could oust Senator Susan Collins. No doubt they promised her whatever financial resources she would need to help her make that decision. Nobody counted on a complete unknown insurgent candidate catching fire the way Graham Plattner has. And so when those numbers started coming in, that shocked a lot of us. The earliest poll numbers that showed Plattner getting out to an early lead. The money people in Washington most likely said, maybe we're not throwing money after this. So I can only imagine that today Janet Mills probably wishes she had just said no. It might have been her first instinct and maybe her best.
Phil, you predicted that Janet Mills would drop out of this race. Did you think that it would happen this soon, or did you expect maybe this would happen after they met on the debate stage?
Well, I think to be correct, I would say I predicted that she would lose. Ethan will tell you that 6 weeks ago, upon reflection and further analysis, he then decided that she should probably drop out. But in any event, I really feel sorry for Janet Mills. She's had a long, illustrious career as a district attorney in two different counties, the attorney general, a legislator, two-term governor, and now the end of her career is dropping out of a race that on the surface, as Pat, I think, accurately pointed out, the Washington insiders and the Democratic Senatorial Committee decided that she was the most qualified and effective candidate to take on Senator Collins. And you could tell early on when Bernie Sanders broke ranks and more recently Elizabeth Warren broke ranks that there was not harmony within the incumbents in the U.S. Senate Democratic caucus. And as a result, aside from the fact that Graham Plattner came from nowhere to the front page of the New York Times, tells you there's a tremendous force probably across the country behind Plattner.
Ethan, I want to bring you in here. You wrote an op-ed, and correct me if I'm wrong. Your message here, you thought it would be best for Governor Mills to step aside in this race, right?
Yeah, that was about 6 weeks ago. I mean, look, she's blaming the fact that she doesn't have money, but that's the least of her worries. She actually has millions of dollars. The issue is the polling. And from the beginning, we were all surprised how poorly she was doing, thought that would turn around, and her message just never clicked. She's just, been a little bit too antagonistic toward the base of the Democratic Party. I think across the state, people have been frustrated with the kind of campaign she's running, but also how she's been governing bills that she's vetoed. Most recently, this data center bill, which I think when we saw that she vetoed that, definitely in my mind, okay, it's clear she's not going to finish this race out because that was a veto that antagonized a lot of people across the state, not just Democrats.
And Terry, I would just add too that Janet Mills, if nothing else, is a pragmatist. So the fact that she chose today to get out before any of the televised debates that are starting within the next week or so, it doesn't surprise me because you can read the writing on the wall. The money's not there, the support is not there. Why go through this just to get yourself clobbered in 6 weeks?
Did she hand Graham Plattner a favor in a way by going negative in the primary and bringing to light some of the controversial comments from his past on Reddit, barring more information becoming unearthed if he ends up being the nominee and looking ahead to the general election?
I don't think it's a
Yeah.
mistake. I think that it was there were two spots that Janet Mills' campaign ran in tandem, and one of them showed a woman, a military veteran who was a victim of sexual assault, talking about you shouldn't take this sort of thing lightly. If that were the only ad that they had run at that point, that might have gotten some traction. But there was another ad in which you had a lot of Democratic women talking about how great Janet Mills is, and as Phil pointed out, right, Phil, you recognized every one of those women as State House insiders.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And, I think it's interesting that the unearthing that you refer to, Terry, were all sort of eye-opening statements that Graham Plattner somehow, so far, has successfully walked back by saying, that's not who I am today. I didn't realize this tattoo was so offensive. I was, under post-traumatic stress. And so far, the Democrat base or the progressive base of the Democratic Party is giving him a pass, something that I would argue that if it was coming from the Republican side, they would be enraged.
Oh my God, Phil, that's you got to be kidding me. Republicans have allowed a guy to be in the White House who has done far worse than Graham Plattner even ever did. So this thing that somehow the Democratic Party is forgiving him more than Republicans might on the right. Now, look, should Democrats give him as much of a pass on that stuff? I think they've asked some really hard questions, pushed him in pretty tough ways to say you need to respond to this. But remember, he's leading against Susan Collins as well. So it's not just Democrats who are saying we understand that people can change. But look at the guy in the White House. He doesn't even apologize for his behavior being, found guilty in a court for civilly liable for, violating a woman and for felony convictions. And this guy's in the White House. So it's no comparison at all.
Ethan, what do you expect from establishment leaders like Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who Graham Plattner has been intensely critical of? Will they coalesce around Plattner? Could they support David Costello, or are they going to take a step back for a while?
No, I think they're going to coalesce pretty quickly. I mean, I think if there's nothing, if anybody, any political leader understands when the writing's on the wall, it's time to step up to that wall. And I think that Graham Plattner is the presumptive nominee. They're going to do everything they can to try to push him through and get him across the finish line. Winning this seat for Democrats is really important in terms of being able to win back the United States Senate. So they're going to take whoever they can and see if they can make it happen.
All right, final thoughts here, guys. Anything else?
Yeah, I just would add that it's pretty tough to read the writing on the wall when your back is up against it. And the fact is, for this election in November, Mainers have to choose between Senator Collins, who arguably is the third or fourth most influential member of the U.S. Senate, or Graham Plattner, who will be the 100th most influential U.S. senator. A lot is at stake for Maine in November.
And I would add too, Ethan talked about how the Governor Mills, throughout her tenure, has done a lot of things that have upset part of the Democratic Party base. I would say, well, that's part of the problem when you're running as an incumbent. She's got an 8-year track record and a job before that. She was making decisions as governor as she saw fit. And if that doesn't suit the party anymore, and if that doesn't make Democrats want her to be their next senator, then so be it. That's the game. But she had a job to do already, and she's going to continue doing that job for the rest of the year.
Yeah, we'll leave it there, gentlemen. I know, Ethan, last thought here. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I just was going to say, in the end, her message just was not connecting. This was not an issue around whether or not she had the money or not. It was just her message was not connecting. She was not the right person for the moment. That doesn't undermine the work that she's done as governor through her career. Lots of good work there for sure, but she just wasn't the right person for the job.
All right. And the three of you are going to be back in our studio this evening for some analysis on this. Also previewing tonight's Democratic debate, the primary for governor here in Maine. So we appreciate your time, guys, and we'll check in with you again soon. Thank you.
You bet.
You're welcome.
Thanks.